Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Amber. Today we are doing our February wrap up and our March TBR. I did not stick to last month's TBR pretty much at all. I ended up with COVID and my brain just couldn't comprehend like anything new, so I did end up doing a reread, and I had COVID for like a week and a half straight of just like, I would start feeling better and then I would feel terrible again. And so my reading just was pretty much non-existent for that time period. So we'll talk about the books that I did read, and I'm just going to go in order. So the first book I read was House of Flame and Shadow by Sarah J. Maas. This is the third book in the Crescent City series, and I ended up giving this 5 stars. I debated on not giving it 5 stars after I rated it. I thought about it for a little bit just because there were some things I had just mild complaints about, but then I kept thinking about the book and the characters and the things that happened, and so I was like, you know what? It's keeping the 5 stars because of how much I keep thinking about it and just the overall way that it made me feel at the end. So the only complaints I really had was there was a POV in here that I just did not care for. I didn't really care what was going on with the character. It didn't really feel like it added much to the story at all. And keeping on track with POVs, I also felt like there was a little too much. Like too many POVs going on that took away from the story a little bit, because I felt like I was having too hard of a time keeping track on who I was following, because anytime it did switch POVs, it didn't tell you who we were. You kind of just had to wait until it either like clicked of, oh yeah, this was the character that was happening to, or you like saw a name and then you knew it was like related to them in a sense. It's hard to explain without giving any spoilers, but like if you've read it, I feel like you know what I'm talking about. Also, I didn't like how sometimes in some of the chapters it would switch POVs, but it wouldn't even tell you that we were switching POVs. Like, you'd have a little, like a spacing in between the paragraph, but it wouldn't say that you were switching. And that was never really, like, if you saw the gap in the paragraphs, it was never a surefire thing of like, oh, we're switching POVs, because sometimes it would stay in that POV. So I feel like it was a little confusing, but I mean, once I was like invested in the story, it started making more sense and I started kind of just getting over it. That was really my only complaints. In the first book, I've talked about this previously, but like in House of Earth and Blood, I didn't know if I was really gonna like the series. I didn't feel super invested in it. I liked the story, but it wasn't something that I felt drawn to, so I took a really long break between that and House of Sky and Breath. And I didn't like Rune's character in the first one, so I was worried about going into the second one because I had heard like it focused more on him. And that one got me more invested, and I kind of kicked myself for taking such a long time in between books. But this one fully sucked me in, made me care about the characters. I care about what's going on now. I enjoy being in this world. So I'm looking forward to the future books that come out in this. And again, like I've said previously, I love the way that Sarah J. Maas intertwines all of her worlds. If you haven't picked this series up at all, definitely recommend it. I know that this book in particular has kind of gotten mixed reviews of some people just didn't really care for it. I've also heard some people say that this is their least liked book out of all of hers. So can't promise that everybody's gonna like it, but I really enjoyed it. Made me love this series. So one of my favorite ones in the series, I think House of Sky and Breath might be my favorite one in the entire series, but this one is definitely close there with it. On to the next. I did a reread of A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is the second book in the ACOTAR series. Probably my favorite book that she's wrote. Probably one of my most favorite books I've read. This is the one that got me back into reading and spiraled me into this. So this one will always get a 5 star from me, will always be something that I think about. It may not be the best written book, but to me, it's just the one that, like, you bring this book up and I'm going to start glowing and I'm going to start ranting about it because I've read it 6 times now, because it's the one that got me back into reading. So I can't help but have like a deep connection to this book and an obsession with it. Then I read Kingdom of the Wicked by Carrie Maniscalco. This is the first book in the Kingdom of the Wicked series. In this one, you're following Amelia, who is a witch, and her sister Victoria ends up being found murdered. And so she decides that she is going to be the one to figure out what happened to her sister, why, and she ends up teaming up with one of the princes of hell, and they agree to help each other figure out that murder. And then there's also more murders that have happened where she lives, so they're trying to figure out what exactly is going on. I gave this 4 stars. I like the story and I'm getting invested in it now, but I would say like the first 50% of this book I thought was kind of slow. It was hard for me to get into, and still to this date, and I'm like 60% of the way through the second one, I just felt like there were quite a bit of things in here that I don't really know why they were talked about. Also, there's like a huge like miscommunication between her and her family, which was bugging me really bad. Like, there were so many things that I feel like could have been prevented had they just talked to each other. So that kind of bugged me. But her and the main male character, I really enjoy their dynamic, their banter. I like Amelia's character for the most part. There's a couple small things that kind of bug me about her. I like the main male character in here. And the ending, I really didn't see that ending coming. I truly thought that there was a different ending that was going to happen. So I was surprised when it was actually the complete opposite of what I thought was going to happen. And then I ended up just completely spiraling away from my TBR, because after being sick and finally starting to feel better, I just really was in a mood reading mode, and none of the books on my TBR that I had picked for the month sounded like something that I wanted to read, and pretty much all of them were like the start of series, and I just really couldn't bring myself to start another series. So then I read My Dark Romeo by Parker S. Huntington. That's a Kindle Unlimited book. That was one that I have had downloaded on my Kindle for a while, and I just had never gotten to it, and I feel like I've seen so many people talk about it that I was like, I need to just read it, and I wanted a break from fantasy. So I was like, oh, I'll read a dark romance. It wasn't for me. I gave it 3 stars because I fully see how people like this book a lot. It just, for me personally, I liked the author's writing, but I really just did not like the main male character. And I've read other dark romances where, like, it's not that I don't like dark romances, but I didn't like his character. I know that they're supposed to be, like, morally gray, questionable morals. I know that. The things that he said bugged me because they weren't just, like, him being grumpy or him being morally gray. I don't know how else to word that. They just seemed like downright just like disrespectful. It wasn't like fun banter. It wasn't like, oh, that's just part of the dark romance. It just felt like straight up like treating the main female character like shit, which I don't really care for that. Also, her dad. Hated her dad. So for me, it was just okay, which that is the start of a series. It's The Dark Prince Road. And I don't know if I'll continue it because it kind of gave me the same feelings of like Twisted Love by Anna Huang. I liked the author's writing, but I just really did not like the main male character, and he personally ruined it for me. And that's pretty much how this was. But then I read the second one in the Twisted Game series, and I loved that book. I gave it 5 stars. So this isn't going to deter me from reading more from that author. And if I see more things on, like, the other books in this series, I may end up picking them up. I don't even know if any of them are out yet. So the next one is My Dark Desire. So I may end up continuing that series. I may end up picking that book up and see if I like it more. Because by the sounds of it, it's one of the main male character's friends from the first book that it's going to focus on. And so I may pick that one up. If anybody's read that one and you liked it more than the first book, let me know, and I may end up picking that up. Because I would love to give this author another shot because, like I said, I liked their writing. Next, I read Where's Molly by H.D. Carlton. Again, another Kindle Unlimited book. This is a spin-off to the Cat and Mouse duet, which is Haunting and Hunting Adeline. It is recommended that you read those 2 books first before getting into this book. And again, this is a dark romance. This one I gave 4 stars. I liked it. I didn't overly love it. I did enjoy Haunting and Hunting Adeline a lot. This one has a lot of trigger warnings, so make sure to check them. I wouldn't say it's as like graphic as Hunting Adeline, but there were like 2 moments in this book where I debated DNFing it, and it wasn't that I wasn't enjoying the book. It's just the topic that was being discussed was kind of hard to read. And it's not that it was overly graphic. It's just like the things that were said made my mind kind of spiral into thinking about the fact that there are people in the world like this. And it just made it so hard to continue reading because I was getting like disgusted and mad and in my own head about the fact that these things actually happen. So, fair warning going in. There are things discussed in here that are hard to read. I wouldn't say there's anything. There's like a couple scenes that are discussed on page, but most of what happens in this book are things that happen either off page or things that happened previously that you're getting like subtly talked about, and it doesn't go into detail. Overall, I really enjoyed the female main character. For it being only 220 pages, I think the author did a really good job at getting me to care for this character very quickly. It was a good read. If you liked Haunting and Hunting Adeline, I would recommend getting into this one. One of her other books that I do want to get to eventually is Satan's Affair, which focuses on Sibby from that. It's like her backstory. And also this character, this is like a focus on a girl named Molly, which she's not directly named in the Haunting and Hunting Adeline duet, but she is in there for a very brief period of time. So it was really interesting to get that backstory on like where she shows up in there, and you get to understand like how she came in to be in that whole situation. And currently I am reading Bride by Ali Hazelwood, even though in my TBR video from last month I said I wasn't going to read that this month, but I did. I'm 85% of the way through. I'm on page 341, and today is the 29th, and I know 100% that I'm going to finish this today. So I don't have a rating for this yet, but Editing Me will have a rating, and I'll put it here underneath the cover. So far, I am really enjoying this book. Is it like some masterpiece? No. But this is Ali Hazelwood's first paranormal romance, and it did not disappoint. The first like 20%, I wasn't super invested. I didn't know if I was really going to enjoy it. But after that, especially like the last 40% of this, I told myself I was going to go to bed at 10 last night because I had to get up for work this morning. And I ended up staying up until 12:30. I read 200 pages of this yesterday. And honestly, like I wasn't even tired when I stopped reading. I wanted to keep reading because every time I'd finish a chapter, I would be like, oh, okay, I need to see where this is going to go. But then I forced myself to stop reading so that I didn't absolutely hate myself today. Really, the only complaints I have about this book is the chapters are a little long, but that's a personal preference. I like shorter chapters. It starts off very quickly. You're pretty much thrown right into the story. I enjoyed that. It gives me the feeling of like height of the Twilight time period. It makes me feel like I'm 15 again, sitting up late reading vampire and werewolf romances on Wattpad. And I don't mean that in a negative way at all. I can't stop reading this book. It has me kicking my feet and giggling like a little kid. I don't really know how else to describe this, but the main characters is a vampire and a werewolf that are thrown into an arranged marriage for an alliance. But I definitely recommend picking this up because it is good. It is an enjoyable read. First, we're going to talk about my TBR, the books that I didn't read. So I read 2 of the books on my TBR, which was House of Flame and Shadow and Kingdom of the Wicked. I did not get to Only One Left by Riley Sager, or Promises and Pomegranates, or The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, or Ledge, or The London Seance Society. But let's be honest, I said from the get-go that I, 99% positive that I wasn't going to read The London Seance Society. That one I kind of already knew. But I did not do very good on the monthly TBR, but that's fine. For this month, there are, I think, obviously it's going to be Kingdom of the Curse by Carrie Maniscalco, because I'm on page 337 out of like 420 or something like that. How many pages are in this? 433. So I'm getting really close to finishing this. So this one's definitely going to be on my TBR because I'm almost done. And then on March 5th, The Prisoner's Throne by Holly Black comes out, which is the second book to the Stolen Heir duology, which is following Oak, Jude's like younger adopted brother, and Surin. I think her name is Surin. It's been a year since I've read that book, and I was going to do a reread, but I couldn't bring myself to do it, so I'll probably just end up watching if I can find one. If I can find one on YouTube, like a recap video. And then also on March 5th, What Monstrous Gods by Rosamund Hodge comes out, which is a young adult fantasy, and it looks like it's a retelling. Also, this one says, centuries ago, the heretic sorcerer Reuven raised a deadly briar around Runaka's palace. I feel like I'm saying this so wrong. Casting the royal family into an enchanted sleep and silencing the kingdom's gods. Born with a miraculous gift, Leah's destiny is to kill Reuven and wake the royals, but when she succeeds, she finds her duty is not yet complete, for now she must marry into the royal family and forge a pact with a god or die. To make matters even worse, Reuven's spirit is haunting her. As discord grows between the old and new guards, the queen sends Leah and Prince Aaron, her betrothed, to a pilgrimage to awaken the gods. But the old gods are more dangerous than Leah ever knew, and Reuven may offer her only hope of survival. As the two work together, Leah learns that they're more alike than she expected. And with tensions rising, Leah must choose between what she was raised to believe and what she knows is right, and between the prince she is bound to by duty and the boy she killed. So that sounds really interesting. So that's another one I do want to pick up this month. And then on March 12th, Happily Never After by Lynn Painter comes out, and that one is about a girl who's about to get married, but right before their wedding, she finds out that her fiancé cheated on her again. But his dad is her dad's like super strict cutthroat boss. So she doesn't want to break off the wedding and potentially ruin things for her dad with work. So she ends up hiring a guy who his whole entire job is to show up to weddings and be the objector. So she ends up hiring him, and then they get to talking, and she's super interested in what he does for a living. So she ends up starting to work with him. And then one of the jobs they get is actually his ex's wedding, but her fiance is who hired them. So he doesn't want to be a part of like hurting his ex, and then it gets awkward because the two main characters are starting to have feelings for each other, and so it kind of gets into a complicated mess. So I really want to pick that one up because that just sounds interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of a book like that. And so those are 4 so far, so I think I'll pick 2 more from my TBR jar. A fantasy book. Okay, let's pick our second one. A book with flowers on the cover. Okay, so for a fantasy book, I am picking Kingdom of the Feared. I'm trying to get through all of my series right now so that I can finally pick up other series that I've been wanting to start, but I'm too intimidated to start new series because of how many I'm in the middle of. So, picking Kingdom of the Feared so that I can finally finish that series. And for a book with flowers on the cover, I'm picking The Gilded Cage by Lynette Noni. This is the second book in the Prison Healer series, and I finished that book I think like 3 or 4 months ago, and yeah, I need to get to the next one. Our TBR this month is Kingdom of the Cursed, Kingdom of the Feared, The Gilded Cage, Happily Never After, The Prisoner's Throne, and What Monstrous Gods. So I think that's a pretty good TBR. I'm pretty excited for most of these. The question is, am I actually going to stick to my TBR this month and do what I say I'm going to do for once? But anyway, let me know any of these books that you have read. What did you think of them? Of course, always spoiler free. Which one do you think should be the next one that I go into off of this list? Because I don't know if I'm going to go directly into Kingdom of the Feared after this, or if I'm going to want like a little bit of a break. Knowing me, I'm going to end up reading this, and then the next thing that I know, it's going to be March 5th, and I'm going to end up picking up The Prisoner's Throne. That is all I have for you though. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, make sure to leave a thumbs up. It helps tremendously with my videos, and make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all my future videos. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!